Kui is a musical heritage, a story with a deep meaning. The Kui Kus Kaitaru, Kazangap Tlepurgenov. Legends in music. They were in for a severely cold winter this year, and Sagit for a long time could not go on his hunt. As soon as it was getting warmer, he took his golden eagle and he left the house. Together with a small sack of oats attached to the saddle of a horse, there was also necessary equipment and a dumbra. The golden eagle was sitting with a leather cap on its head and clicking his beak in anticipation of the long-awaited hunt. It was a beautiful sunny day, and the silver snow sparkled on the dry grass. The whole land was covered with snow, and the hunter passed by the free-ranging herds and went deeper into the steppe, which reminded him of a silent, snowy desert. Sagit was leading his horse to the high ground, where on the top he was going to release his bird. Sagit rode and thought that there was nothing better for him than to mount a horse and to go hunting with his jitis, simply to see how the golden eagle would soar in the blue sky, so strong and fast. The sharp eyes of a bird saw a running fox or a hare. First it made circles, having folded its wings, and then it would attack its prey like a deadly storm, carrying it away in its long, sharp claws. After making halfway, the hunter turned to the lower hills, covered with snow, and decided to halt and repose his way-worn horse. He also decided to give a bit of raw meat to the golden eagle to whet its appetite. He stopped the horse and chose a convenient place so that the hill would be safe from the gust of wind, in case of a sudden and frequent storm in these parts. Sagit removed his glove and carefully made the bird sit on it. He took the golden eagle when it was very small. Jitis was surprisingly clever, and then it was the best hunting bird in these parts. Sagit removed the cap from its head and took a piece of meat from his leather bag. The golden eagle grabbed the food with its beak and swallowed it in an instant. Sagit took a dumbra in his hands, which he kept near himself day and night, and then he touched the strings. He began playing his favorite kui. It was about an impetuous golden eagle, saying to himself, "Predator proud and beautiful, the beauty and power does not fade. People are taming it, and the hunt is taught. And near the golden eagle is the king of all the birds in the world." the kui kus kaitaru. As Aljan learned that Bikhem was going to the mountains to pick out the young golden eagle, he began to follow him all day, begging to go with him. For a long time the old hunter kept refusing, and therefore annoying the little boy, but in the end he agreed. The happy day at last had come. As soon as the dawn sky had turned to a gray one, the boy jumped off of his bed and began to prepare for the journey. His mother collected a travel bag. He was like an adult going on a hunt. "Oh, my dear son, you're only 12 years old, and you already want to become a berkutshi. But you will face much trouble with this bird. Oh, I do not know how you can handle the golden eagle. Look at the grandfather of Bikhem, how much trouble it is for him to keep his birds. Yes, and recently he had let 2 birds fly away. It's hard for him to keep them," his mother said, shaking her head. "Well, you, Mom, he released these falcons and eagles because they are already old. You see, he's going to look for new chicks, and if I'm lucky, I'll have my own golden eagle," Aljan joyfully exclaimed, and his happy black eyes stared at his mother. Suddenly his face became very serious. He confidently said, "Just don't you worry. I'm already big and strong. I've been studying for a long time. I know how to handle a bird, and how to treat a damaged wing, how to feed it and train it. I will succeed. Especially Bikhem promised to help me. You'll see, Mom, I'll have the fastest and the best golden eagle in our valley." Aljan looked at old Bikhem in surprise, and he quickly climbed to the steep slope of the mountain. Aljan could barely keep up with him. "In general, son, when the bird gets a little used to you," the hunter said, teaching the boys the subtleties of breeding a bird, "then you will immediately need to accustom it to a leather cap, that it must be sewn exactly to the size of the bird's head. And you must put it on very clearly and very quickly." After having climbed the mountain range, Bikhem stopped, looked around, took a breath and said, "We need to circle this mountain and climb the path to the top. There on the rocky ledge we will see the golden eagle's nest. And now we must walk in silence." Aljan followed the hunter, holding his breath, and stopped a few steps from the nest. He saw 2 fluffy white lumps with yellow beaks. Suddenly another small head swaying on a thin neck had appeared in the nest. With a quick movement, Bikhem grabbed the largest chick and put it in the pocket of the bag. They went around the ledge and began to climb higher and higher. They didn't see the short bushes along the way anymore. They climbed so high where only moss could grow on the rocks. "There's another eagle's nest on that peak," Bikhem said. "Ata, I've already come up with a name for my chick. He will be called Jankiyar," Aljan said, full of hops. "It is a good name," Bikhem said, smiling. "If we're lucky, we'll take another chick." "And if not?" the boy said quietly. The old hunter looked around and hurried him. "Come on, Aljan, we need to hurry." His legs became heavy, and his throat was dry and burning. As if there were hot coals in him, his heart was fluttering, and it seemed to him that it would jump out of his chest now. Aljan was so tired of this upsurge, but he tried to do his best. He wanted Bikhem to not notice anything. The sharp-witted old man looked sideways at the boys, who did not ask him to stop and rest. In his heart, he even respected the boy and thought that he would become a real hunter. Suddenly, Bekem stopped and raised his hand, making it clear that he would go on alone. Peering closely, Aljan saw among the gray stones a small hill of thin branches stacked on each other, and only then did he realize that he had reached the eagle's nest. Bekem looked into it. It was empty. Late in the evening, the old hunter and the boy came back to the village. When they reached Aljan's house, he patted him on his shoulder and said warmly, "Well, here we are." "Yes, Ata, here we are. Thank you for taking me with you," Aljan said in a sad voice, and he turned around, heading for his home. Tears came into the boy's eyes. What a pity that he would not have his golden eagle. "Hey, Aljan," Bekem called to him. "Why didn't you take your Jankiar?" The boy stopped. He couldn't believe his ears. Bekem Ata had given him the chick. In an instant, he jumped to the hunter and took a white lump with his shaking hands. The chick was so hungry. Many years have passed since then. Aljan has become a handsome and strong man, and his golden eagle Jankiar was the best hunter in the whole valley. Once Aljan went hunting, he decided to climb into a higher mountain, and there were many foxes among the fir groves. Aljan let his Jankiar go and began to watch him spinning in the sky, gracefully spreading his powerful wings. The golden eagle began to fly away from Aljan, and then he completely disappeared among the clouds. Until that evening, Aljan was going around the mountains, calling his bird, but the golden eagle did not come back. The hunter was in despair. He returned home. Silently, he walked back and forth. He didn't know what to do. He went to his bed when it was getting dark, and he got up when the sun rose. So slowly did the day pass, day after day. Aljan was waiting, but Jankiar did not return to him. He was overwhelmed with grief and sorrow. He walked around the village like a shadow. The neighbors sadly looked at him and did not know how to help the heartbroken man. They stopped him and talked to him, inviting him into their houses. But Aljan only shook his head, and he didn't speak to anyone. He thought about one thing. Why did the golden eagle fly away from him? Because he cherished the eagle as the apple of his eye, and yet he flew away. Once he was going along the road, visiting a neighboring aul, and he looked with his empty and sad eyes at the flowering steppe, for nothing pleased him. He stopped by the spring and gave a drink to his horse, and he sat down under the tree and closed his eyes. Suddenly he heard the melody, surprisingly gentle, and it was getting faster, and he heard the rumble of a gusty fresh wind bearing raindrops before a thunderstorm, and the flapping of the wings soaring upward, high towards the shining sun. The flash of light lit up, and Aljan's body was trembling, and then he opened his eyes. He rubbed his face with his hands, as if he had awakened from a deep sleep. And at that very moment, Aljan understood why the golden eagle had flown away from him. He understood everything. He realized that there is nothing sweeter than freedom. After all, he will not exchange his freedom for any wealth, neither gold nor silk. The Jigit looked around and saw a lonely traveler sitting under a large flowering bush. He was playing on his dumbra an amazingly beautiful kui. The golden eagle is born free as he is. He felt dizzy from these thoughts, like sweet honey spreading warmth and peace in his chest. Aljan returned home happily and calmly, and the whole village was happy for him. The hunter had rest and went on, and soon reached the big mound. Having mounted his horse, he climbed up the mound and looked around. The steppe was spread out before him. The peaks of the majestic mountain that surround the steppe protected it from the piercing raging winds. Sagitt took off the cap from the head of the golden eagle and raised his hand. He spread the wings of Jetis, and then the bird soared into the blue sky. The hunter admired his bird, but didn't take his eyes off of him. He watched her swift flight. The raven takes off, but the falcon takes off higher. The golden eagle is the king of all the birds of the world. Above the falcon, he takes off. Kazangap Tlepyrgenov. The creativity of Kazangap Tlepyrgenov is not only a monument of Kazakh folk culture, but also serves as an eternally living source from which new generations of musicians and performers of Kazakhstan draw their inspiration.